Hello, everybody, and welcome to the eighth week of the semester, or as most of you like to refer to it as, the week before spring break. What are we going to do this week? We're going to look at a very important time, not only in British history, but world history, and this is known as the Industrial Revolution. So, the Industrial Revolution essentially was when England at first, and then eventually the world, but England changed from a mostly agrarian society, which means that it was a society based upon farming, um, to an industrialized society, which is a society based upon manufacturing and consumerism. There's a lot of good things about the Industrial Revolution. Because of the Industrial Revolution, you can now take an online class instead of having to travel to a classroom because you have computers, you have the internet, you have all these great inventions of recent years, right? But let's go back to uh, even before that. These phones have been made possible by the Industrial Revolution. Mass production of clothes. So if you buy a certain brand name, uh, the Industrial Revolution is the reason why you do that. And that's in clothing, that's in automobiles, that's in anything you can imagine. So we're going to learn this week that the Industrial Revolution was actually something that happened because of a perfect storm, because all kinds of events came together, like railroads and like uh, efficient energy, and like all kinds of other things, like banking and things like that, that allowed for this massive change from uh, everybody making a living being a farmer to people working in factories and people becoming bankers and people selling insurance and all this other stuff that is possible. So the bright side of the Industrial Revolution is that we can now live a very comfortable life because of the changes that it brought about. But there was a serious dark side, and that dark side is something we're going to look closely at, particularly in child labor. So there were other dark sides too, like cities becoming polluted and all that stuff. But child labor was one of the darkest parts of the Industrial Revolution, and there were many reasons for that. So, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at two documents. You're going to take the quiz on the history of the Industrial Revolution, and then we're going to look at two primary documents. One of those primary documents is a report from the Commissioner of the Mines, and there's only little snippets from this report. The report was like 100 and something pages, but the snippets from this report are going to show that children were treated horribly by the mine owners and by the foremen in the mines and by the people that basically they could whip the children because those were children and they were the bosses, and so on and so forth. So you're going to hear some real horrifying stories by the children that lived through that. But on the flip side of that, you've got the poem by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And in that poem, it's called Cry of the Children. These are children that have lost all hope. They are begging for release from the horrifying lives they live, where they have to work 16-hour days in dark mines or in dark factories. It's dangerous work. It's hard work. And they're treated more like machines than they are human beings. And there are some disturbing things about this poem, like the children losing their hope in God because they keep praying, God, deliver me from this horrible life. And they still have to go to work the next day, right? Things like that. So for your paper this week, you're going to look at how a primary document like the report from the mines and a poem, which is a work of art by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Remember her? You met her last week. How this poem by Elizabeth Barrett Browning kind of work together to raise awareness of the fact that there is child labor going on in England, because many people were completely unaware of it, especially the consumers that were buying the goods and stuff that were created through child labor. And so that is what you're going to be looking at for the paper. For the discussion posting, you're going to look at modern day art that comments on social issues. It can be music, it can be movies, it can be books, it can be paintings like graffiti, things like that. Any work of art that comments on a current event today, and you can choose whatever current event you want: Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, the gun issue, right? There anything that an artist of some sort uses their craft to raise awareness of a social issue or to try to say something needs to be done about these social issues. Um, just like Elizabeth Barrett Browning did with The Cry of the Children. So, see, what artists are doing now is nothing new. Elizabeth Barrett Browning did this back in the 1800s, and many people before her did it as well. So, do the discussion posting on time, by the way. I will not grade it if it's late. Um, do the reading and the quiz, and do the little response paper. And if you do all of that by Sunday and you've caught up on all the rest of your work, you get to take next week off.